Listen to this episode if you want to know the inside scoop of how some of the legacy brands, the biggest names in business, are failing right now. You know that I literally study business for sport at this point. I am in on talking about business, thinking about business, dreaming about business, reading about business all day long. And this is something that I have been absolutely chomping at the bit to talk about for a really long time. So I'm excited about this podcast today. We are going to talk about why some of the legacy players in their industry, in the world, these are all businesses that many people across the world, these are household names, some of the biggest household names are actually failing. Their stocks are down 50, 60% from their peak, and they're flailing at the end of the day. Why this is, what they should have done instead, and what I believe is going to save them if they are going to be saved. No matter the size of your business, this episode is going to be helpful, insightful, interesting for how you can manage, run, and think about business in general. You guys know I talk about this entrepreneurial IQ, building this business brain. And so I'm trying to impart my business brain onto you so you can build that bigger business as well. We're going to talk about why some of these industry giants are seeing these steep downturns and what they need to do instead. First, I'm just going to take 10 quick seconds to say hello. My name is Madison Page. I am a business growth specialist. I teach product-based businesses how to become the next household name in their industry, and I love talking about some business lore. Truly, the world has changed in the last 5 years drastically. If we think about why people purchased, even pre-pandemic to post-pandemic is drastically different. Even in the middle of the pandemic to now, even in 2024 to 2026, things have drastically changed in the consumer world, in the e-commerce world, in why people buy in general. You know, marketing principles don't change, but the consumer does, and the consumer behavior does change. And that is what happened in these cases as to why some of these giants did not adapt into who and why people are buying. The consumers have changed, and the giants have not adapted and caught up to how the consumers have changed, what people need and why they need it. The average brand and the businesses that are winning today, people care about the connection, they care about the community, they care about values. They care about the uniqueness. They don't just care about the brand name that is slapped on it at this point. If we go and we look, many people actually like supporting smaller, kind of almost like more indie brands right now than they do the legacy players. Why that is because they feel more connected to those brands. Bigger, more corporate companies are run in a corporate style. They struggle to actually build connection and relatability to their consumers because of the nature of these corporate companies. They're very sterile from the outside. They don't have a face of the brand. Nobody knows who the founder is anymore because they were gone a decade or 20 years or 50 years ago. You know, there isn't this personal connection behind those brands anymore. And so many people have kind of just like fallen off of really caring about who they are. And there's like this level of people just feeling like they are only there for this transactional nature. It's no longer this relationship building games. If we think about new legacy players that are doing things really well, I think about Skims, I think about Aloe Yoga, I think about Tarte Cosmetics. They have adapted over the years to basically connect with their audience at a totally different level than the average business owner is doing it, especially at the level of business those people are doing business. We're talking $100+ million businesses. We're talking about $500 million, $1 billion business. I bet Tarte could be. The brands struggling today focused on structure. They focused on efficiency. They focused on profit. They focused on let's just keep building what we have been building in this structured, sterile nature. The modern brands that are winning, yes, you still have to focus on some of those things behind the scenes, but outwardly, they're focusing on connection, they're focusing on community, and they're focusing on retention and building relationships and really standing on their own, saying, this is what we are so great at. The legacy players built systems and structures, and the modern outliers built movements and connection to the consumers, and they really feel like they are a part part of the brand. They're really excited about it because they didn't take the warm and fuzzies out of their brand. There is no warm and fuzzies around some of these industry players at this point. If we're talking about some of the biggest brands ever, they are dying to try to build connection, but it actually is falling short. And so today I want to talk about three major big ones that I see that have absolutely fallen off, and some data to back it up, why they've done this, what they should have done instead. And then we're going to talk about what this really means for you. First things first, one of the big ones is Nike. If we look at Nike, if we look at some of the data, their stock is down 55% in 5 years. That's detrimental. And their annual revenue declined just 10% in 2025 alone. One of the steepest drops in recent history for a major legacy brand. Nike is one of the most recognizable brands worldwide, yet they are seeing a decline. Why that is because they haven't really changed and adapted much. They have the same products. They have the Dunks, the Air Forces, whatever. They have all of the same similar products. They have the same slogan. They've tried to go the political route. That didn't really work for them. They've tried to go the more inclusive route. That didn't really work for them. They just don't have this core ethos as to why people should care about Nike anymore. As saturation grew, as the consumers adapted, Nike kind of remained the same. They tried a bunch of things. They kind of flailed to figure this out, but nothing was that unique. Nothing really stuck, and nothing was actually memorable. Just because they have one of the most recognizable companies in the world, literally you can go to the middle of Africa and people know who Nike is, and they don't even have the internet in some places, right? People know Nike. Why that is because Nike has complete brand awareness, but they don't have brand ethos, meaning they don't really have a message behind the brand anymore. Yes, they have Just Do It. Yes, they have all of this brand recognition, but they don't have brand connection. They don't have like emotional equity in people's minds. When you think about Nike right now, do you think about a mission? Do you think about a purpose? Do you think about a value that Nike has more than, pushing yourself and keeping going and you're doing all of those things? It just is, again, the word sterile is how I think about it at this point. There's nobody to connect to. They've tried many different faces of celebrities and athletes and all of these things. Nobody really is connection driven at Nike anymore. They are going through it from the revenue pipeline. They basically expanded, and people aren't buying from them direct to consumer anymore. People aren't just typing up Nike as much as they used to be to go and search for Nike because there's so many other options. We've seen a huge rise in mega brands within the shoe category. We see Hoka, we see On Cloud, we see the North Face, we see Solomon. All of these brands have expanded into the modern world of the types of running, the types of technology, the types of innovation that all of those brands have. If I think about Hoka, we think about a very specific style of shoe. If I think about On Running or On Cloud, I think about a very specific style of shoe. When I think about the North Face, they have a very specific style of shoe. Before, I would go and just type in Nike.com and be like, okay, where's the best shoes? Now I'm searching around from company to company because Nike feels like a basketball company at this point in my mind. Nike feels like I am playing a specific sport and that is who I'm wearing their shoes. Whereas all of these other people have hyper focused on certain areas and then expanded. Hoka and On, both of those started as running brands, and now they have effectively expanded into being known for something. Nike hasn't yet gotten to that point. The next one that I want to talk about is Lululemon. And I guess all three of these kind of have a similar vibe to them. They're all in similar athletic industries. But the second one I want to talk about is Lululemon. Lululemon's stock is down 60% from its peak just 2 years ago. In the athleisure world, I would dare to say that Lululemon borderline invented athleisure. They were the first major player, at least, to really push this like athletic wear on your day-to-day basis, that it's more of a lifestyle. They came out with the premium within the industry. They had an identity around wearing Lululemon. When you wore Lululemon, you had this like little bump in ego, I guess. It was this identity that you were wearing the premium luxury option for $120 pair of leggings. And then dupe culture came around, Alo Yoga, Viore, all of these other brands that sell basically the same product, again, continued to come in and adapt when Lululemon stayed the same. They stayed this sterile company that wasn't really known for anything unique anymore. I think about Set Active. I don't think they're by any means as big as Lululemon, but they took a lot of market share from Lululemon because they were known as the company for sets. They said, we're launching based on these colorways. Alo does that too. Here's a new colorway of your favorites. And then you can buy it across the board. They had something unique. Alo Yoga adapted into having gyms and, strong connections with celebrities and influencers. Viore is known as kind of like this lifestyle athletic wear line that, yes, you can wear it to work out, but it's much more elevated athletic wear that you can wear on your everyday that's super comfortable. And they all have their own lane that you think of these brands, whereas Lululemon is still just like this mass creator of athleisure. They have no community connection. They might do a pop-up here and there, but you never really hear about them other than one of their major pushes being they sponsored some creators and gave them everything in their closet. So some of these major creators, if you scroll TikTok and type in Lululemon creators, they will have the scuba jacket in every color. They'll have the Align leggings in every color. And they basically just show you their full Lululemon closet, which feels inaccessible and not something that you can relate to. Again, there's nothing here that Lululemon does that they are separating themselves, that are saying that they're doing things differently. And honestly, they've kind of fallen behind. In the last year, Lululemon has flailed to try to find something that works. They did a collaboration with Disney, which feels very unaligned. They have been launching some wild colors and patterns that they know are never going to sell just to try to stand out and do something different. They have actually diluted what their brand was known for, which started out as this like minimal, kind of clean, everyday Pilates lifestyle person. Now they have diluted it into nobody really knows what they stand for anymore. The customer in the marketplace wants to know what are the values of the brand, what actually makes it different. And now that there's dupes everywhere where people can buy basically the same product for $30 on Amazon from CRZ Yoga, which is a known dupe of Lululemon on Amazon. Go look it up. Literally the same products. I have many that I have compared and contrasted. And why would I spend $120? Because I don't care enough about the brand. The brands that are still winning have made me care about why I should buy from a Viore or from an Alo Yoga, or even from like a Vitality, which is a smaller business made by an influencer, but I feel more connected to the brand because of the marketing that they have behind the scenes. They have influencers, they have real people out there, they have ambassadors. And on that note, Lululemon took away their lifetime guarantee and they took away their ambassador program, which broke trust to their most loyal customers in this flailing of trying to figure out how to actually make more sales and to save the company. The actual founder of Lululemon, who exited 10, 12 years ago, took out a full page ad in Wall Street Journal to say he doesn't agree with how the company is running and here's why it's failing. He's not a part of the company anymore. And he's saying, I can see this from the outside. You have not adapted my business to connect and build community like the consumer needs at this point. Lululemon and Nike both really had the same problem here. They didn't adapt when it was absolutely necessary because the consumer did. They just kept building and building and building and expanding when they actually had to go inwards. They should have made things more intimate. They should have made things more connection driven. Hey, I've been getting some DMs that you may not know what I do outside of hosting this podcast. I actually work with product-based business owners every single day to help them grow and scale their brand. If you really want my eyes one-on-one inside of your business to look at your strategy, to look at your funnels, to look at your data, and to develop your next campaign or bring your business or your idea to life, that is exactly what I do every single day. I've worked with 500 plus businesses across 70 different industries to help them become the next household name in their industry. If you are craving a business brain, a strategic advisor, a data-centered, obsessed person to come into your business and help you bring your idea to life, I'm your gal. Come on over to my Instagram at This Is Madison page, DM me support. Otherwise, you can click the link in the show notes to apply today. Okay, back to the episode. Last but not least of a major player we're going to talk about, then I'm going to talk about, what this actually means for you and a brand that I believe you need to keep an eye on. When we look at the final one here is I want to talk about Peloton. Peloton was the it brand in 2020, 2021 because everybody was at home. Mid-pandemic, everybody was at home, sitting on their Pelotons, trying to work out, going stir crazy. And Peloton was the premium. They were the luxury. They are the name. My mom has like a fake Peloton, different brand, whatever. And we literally call it the Peloton because it was almost synonymous with just like this stationary bike in your house that you can go and do different workout classes with. They built a community around the people that were running the classes, around the fitness instructors. People connected with them, but they didn't maintain that after people started going back to work. They didn't maintain the community around the brand. And so once the boom faded, it exposed their strategic blind spots in product demand, in positioning. They basically said, okay, this is our new normal. This is what our business is going to look like because everybody is at home. But then the world went back to normal and they never adapted to modern life without everybody being in lockdown in their house. They built a product that created community, but then they never rebuilt the business to maintain that community as the world changed. It is a classic example of not adapting when the world changed. So they were kind of a fad. They came in, people loved them, many people, now they're sitting in their house and they never use them. Maybe in January for a couple of weeks, but honestly, they're more of like a coat hanger in a lot of homes at this point. Why that is because they didn't figure out how to maintain when people were going back. They tried to build different styles where you could do some weightlifting and all of that from working out at home, but people went back to normal. They started to go to the gym. They started to be able to go outside and run and do all of these other things again and feel comfortable. They weren't locked in their house with nothing to do, going stir crazy. So Peloton effectively fell off the face of the earth in the last year or two. If you look at Peloton's stock, it is an actual physical complete downturn. It is down 95% in the past 5 years. Their stock price was at $158 a share 5 years ago today, and today it's at $6.85. If that doesn't tell you how the demand has shifted for Peloton, I don't know what else will. They should have built this into a lifestyle brand. They could have opened up gyms. They had to adapt. This kind of reminds me of Netflix. Netflix started out as a CD rental company. You would go online, order a CD, it would come to your house and you would ship it back. When streaming services started, they had to adapt, and places like Blockbuster didn't adapt, and now they're all gone. All of those at-home movie rentals, none of them adapted into the modern day world, and now they are bankrupt and they are obsolete. Peloton is the next Blockbuster if they don't develop and adapt from where they are. I want you to look at Peloton's truly at their stock price. If you're watching on the video, it is hideous what that looks like. At their peak, they were sold for $158. Now that they are at $6.84, we need to adapt into this world. It honestly might be too far gone for them. But at this point, what they need to do is they need to expand into more of a lifestyle community-based business. They could have been the next Equinox. They could have been, Alo Yoga has these gyms that are for celebrities and high-end people in LA and New York and these places. And they could have done that to maintain the community that they had. However, they were stuck in keeping the business that they had, and they never built. They have strategic gaps in their world at this point. What all of these brands needed to do was pivot to today's customer and a changing market. They should have built more of a community and a connection of people that latched on to their business. And they should have stood for what they actually stand for. Many of these brands we can see flailing. Lululemon, Nike, Peloton, they're all flailing, trying all of these different things, and nothing is sticking. What they had to do was actually go deeper, not wider. All of them tried to go wide and go here, go there. And it's a really fine dance of being unique, but adapting into what consumers need. And from the outside, it's very clear to see that none of these brands fully understood what a modern consumer wanted. And it was connection, it was value, it was intimacy. It wasn't casting a wider net trying to find the newest product. Many people don't need another Peloton once they have one. That's why they started a subscription. That's why they started to create new products, because they're like, shoot, we outstretched the community that we have. Now what? They had to actually look deeper, not wider, not trying to find new customers out there. You can find Pelotons on Facebook Marketplace for very cheap now. That is a number one indicator of something going downhill. The next brand that I think we really need to watch that is in jeopardy of this happening to is Stanley. Stanley was a major craze, but now everybody has built saturation around it. If you know the story of Stanley, I've done a case study on Stanley, but basically this was like an outdoors brand. This was an outdoorsy brand for truly they marketed to men over 40 that liked to hunt and fish and camp. That was who they were marketing to. These three moms came in and said, hey, this product, this Stanley Cup that now we all know, basically is the best product you've ever made, but you're marketing it to men and it should be marketed to mass market and to women because it's so great for people on the go. Let me come and help you market this. And that is where the Stanley Cup craze came from. All of these people now wanted a Stanley. Kids love Stanleys. All of these people love Stanleys, but now Hydro Flask and, Walmart brand, everybody just has a dupe of the Stanley. It's not that crazy of an innovation. They now have just duped it and that's totally fine. But what Stanley now has to do so they don't fall back to who they were 6-10 years ago, they have to adapt into creating something that they stand for. They have to adapt into why should you own a Stanley. At the point of the craze, everybody was like, I want a Stanley because it has the name behind it. It has the brand behind it. It has, the status symbol. But now the status symbol, the Awala has come in. That was kind of the next craze. What's going to be the next one? There's going to be a next one. And so Stanley has to figure out how to stay relevant by adapting into the newest marketplace. What happens here is somebody has something unique, a bunch of saturation comes in, and the person that had something unique stops making anything that's that unique, really removes all warmth and connection to the brand, and then that brand dies. So what does this mean for you? No matter the size of your business, you may have a big business, you may be just starting, you may not even have a business, but you just love learning about business, but someday you would love to have one. What this means for you is that you can never be so stuck on how you are running things that you are too basically prideful to adapt into where the consumers are. That is what happened in these industries. They got so big that they zoomed out and said, we are untouchable. None of these brands are untouchable. And that is evident when we look at Nike, when we look at Target had a tough year, we look at Starbucks had a tough year. We look at these brands, Apple had a tough year. We look at these brands that are legacy brands known worldwide. This tells me that visibility and brand awareness alone will not save you if you don't understand what the consumer wants and how things are adapting in the marketplace, and you are not willing to do that. Modern brands are prioritizing connection and relationships outwardly and only prioritizing the structure and kind of sterile nature of business behind the scenes. Many of these brands are still run as a major corporate company, but what they did differently is from a marketing perspective, they have been marketing in a very warm, nurturing, community-centered approach, and they leave the sterile nature to the behind the scenes. What all of these brands that are failing and struggling are doing is they kept that transactional approach in marketing, in sales, on their website, and behind the scenes. We need to adapt into that. So for you, no matter if you are a solo entrepreneur, if you have a small team, or if you have a massive team, we have to understand how important relationships, community, connection, value, standing for something, being different, setting yourself apart from everybody else in your industry. You have to do that in today's day and age, especially if you're trying to come into a saturated industry. Look at this. Lululemon had the market share of the premium $100 leggings, $120 leggings in that industry. Alo Yoga came in, Viore came in, Set Active came in, and now there's all of these micro brands even coming in. And then we have Form and we have Vitality and we have all of these other more medium-sized brands, medium still meaning 8 figures plus, coming into the marketplace and stealing their market share because they're doing something different. They have a face behind the brand. They have a founder-facing community, or they have some sort of like outside of actually just buying leggings. What does this mean for me as a consumer? That is what you need to figure out around your brand. What does buying your brand mean for you, and how can we expand from that? How can you use that to make sure everybody out there knows that that is what makes you different? All of these brands failed because they stopped innovating and adapting. And that is something that you cannot do if you want to be successful in business. I hope this was fun for you. I love these episodes. I truly wish my whole podcast was this style of episode. You're going to see a lot more of this in 2026. This is something that we have added into the business growth podcast strategy and just like community that I want to bring to you. Again, this is something I'm studying this stuff all day long. You will definitely see more of this. If you want my brain in your business so I can see things that you can't, make sure that you DM me on Instagram. You can come apply. All of our support is open for enrollment right now, starting at the beginning of the year. You can come on over and I would love to chat with you. You can DM me support. Otherwise, you can click the link in the show notes and apply. I would love to work with you, learn more about what you're building, and make sure that you have all of these bits and pieces set in stone so you can become an industry leader and you can stay there as well. I love you. I'm rooting for you. I'm in your corner always, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Business Growth Podcast. We put out new episodes every Tuesday and Friday. So if you love this one, make sure that you're subscribed so you never miss a conversation. If you want more conversations with me and other business owners, make sure that you join our completely free podcast community, the Founders Cafe. The link is in the show notes. You can get bonus resources, access to free coaching calls, as well as connect with like-minded business owners like yourself. Make sure that you rate and review the podcast 5 stars, share it with a friend to keep those conversations moving, and come back every Tuesday and Friday. I'll see you there.